Hello, I'm John McGovern, and today I'm going to be discussing Book 4 of Edmund Spenser's poem, The Faerie Queene. Book 4 centres around the virtue of friendship, and unlike the other books, it doesn't have a knight, its own knight, who is the main character, but the protagonists are Britomart, the female knight from the previous book, and also Prince Arthur. The second main theme of the book is concord, or agreement, and concord is thought to be the essential precondition of friendship. This idea derives from Cicero, who wrote that the foundation of friendship is complete agreement in policy, pursuits, and opinions. It's also similar to Aristotle's view, who wrote in the Nicomachean Ethics that friends must share a similar outlook. That you can't be friends, really true friends, if your outlook is very different. Throughout the book, Spenser explores how discord or disagreement can be changed into concord or agreement, and this is a key theme of medieval and Renaissance poetry. You might think of Theseus in the Midsummer Night's Dream, for example. How shall we find the concord of this discord? And just bear that in mind, that Spenser is exploring this theme throughout the book. Canto 1 begins with Britomart riding in the company of Amoret, a virtuous woman whom she rescued from the enchanter Bizarane, as you might recall from the previous book. And Britomart and Amoret, they lodge in a castle where there is a rule that anyone who has no love nor leman, leman is an old-fashioned word for lover, anyone that has no love nor leman has to be locked outside the castle at night. And there is a knight who has no lover yet, so he wants to try and win Amoret for himself, and so he challenges Britomart to a fight. The knight doesn't have a name; he's just called a jolly knight. But the jolly knight is defeated, and when he is defeated, Britomart doesn't rub salt in the wounds by having him locked out, but she intercedes on his behalf and asks for him to be able to remain within the castle. So this is the first example of discord turning into concord. In this canto, we're also introduced to a horrible woman called Ate, also described as a hag and based on the Greek goddess of mischief. Spenser's Ate is called the mother of debate and dissension, so the polar opposite of the virtue of the book, the second theme of the book, concord. She's described as living in a house near the gates of hell, and she doesn't contribute anything to the world. She doesn't construct anything or build anything. She's only interested in tearing down the things which other people have built. For all her study was and all her thought, how she might overthrow the things that concord wrought, as Spenser says. And Ate travels in the company of three people. Firstly, her lover, Blandemore, who represents flattering love. Secondly, Duessa, the witch, who represents falsehood. We met her in previous videos. And thirdly, Paridel. You might remember him from book 3. In that book he carried away Helenor, but now he's the mate of Duessa. And in the conversation between these four villains, there's a good example of the confusion that can arise if reading the book too quickly. The two men are deciding whether to steal Amoret from Britomart or not. And this passage starts with the voice of the narrator. He had small lust to buy his love so dear, but answered, and then this is Paridel speaking, Sir, him wise I never held, that having once escaped peril near, would afterwards afresh the sleeping evil rear. This night too late his manhood and his might, I did assay, so he's saying he fought Britomart before, that me right dearly cost, ne list I for revenge provoke new fight, ne for light lady's love that soon is lost, the Hotspur youth so scorning to be crossed. And now this is Blandemore's reply. Take then to you this dame of mine, quoth he, and I without your peril or your cost will challenge yon same other for my fee. And the narrator again. So forth he fiercely pricked, that one him scarce could see. So you can see here we don't have the help of quotation marks or anything like that. The only help you've got is the quoth he in brackets. So it's important to pay attention to the details and keep an eye on who is speaking at any given time. So Blandemore decides to go and fight Britomart, and he's much weaker than Britomart, so he's roundly defeated. And immediately afterwards, Paridel wants to show that he is brave as well. So he attacks Sir Scudamore, and he is defeated too. And the fight between the bad Paridel and the good Scudamore is described in breathtaking poetic language. As when two billows in the Irish sounds, forcibly driven with contrary tides, do meet each other, each aback rebounds with roaring rage, and dashing on all sides, that filleth all the sea with foam divides the doubtful current into diverse ways. So fell those two, in spite of both their prides. But Scudamore himself did soon upraise, and mounting light his foe, for lying long upraise. So this is describing two waves crashing into each other in the Irish Channel. I looked it up, and oceanographers call this phenomenon destructive interference. So when two waves crash into each other and cancel each other out. I might not have mentioned before that Spenser had been living in Ireland since, in County Cork in Ireland since around 1588. He was living in a ruined castle called Kilcolman, and at the time he was refurbishing it, and he had other colonists living on the land and paying rent to him. So he'd been there about 10 years when books 3 to 6 were written. So this helps to explain why there are so many references to Ireland in the poem. This passage is also an example of an epic simile, sometimes called a Homeric simile or a Virgilian simile, because the epic poets Homer and Virgil also use them. And this is a simile where one composite action is compared to another composite action for an elevated effect. And it's normally used to compare a human action with natural forces. So in this example, you've got a clash between two knights, which is compared to two waves crashing into each other. So to take an example from Homer's Iliad, as when the shudder of the west wind suddenly rising scatters across the water, and the water darkens beneath it, so darkening were settled the ranks of Achaeans and Trojans in the plain. So you can see here there's really a really astonishing poetic effect. And Spenser seems to have become addicted to epic similes in the 1590s, because there are none or very few epic similes in the first 3 books, but in book 5, first published in 1596, there were no less than 5 epic similes. So he seems to have become very interested in this poetic technique. He's also very good at them. After Scudamore has defeated Paridel, the 2 wicked witches, Ate and Duessa, realize that he can't be defeated by physical force, so they decide to use cunning against him instead. And they claim that Scudamore has been cuckolded. They claim that Britomart is having an affair with him. And Scudamore is very angry. And like all good slanders, this one has a semblance of truth, because as we know, Britomart was riding in Amoret's company, but we also know that Britomart was a woman, and there was nothing untoward going on. This part of the narrative is continued in Canto 6, so various other things happen in between, and then it's completed in Canto 6, where Artegall, who is a knight we're going to hear more of in Book 5, allies himself with Scudamore to fight Britomart, but they're defeated, and Britomart falls in love with Artegall, and this is the conclusion of the main quest of Book 3, which involved Britomart seeking Artegall's hand in marriage after seeing his face in a magic mirror. In Canto 2 we meet false Florimel again, sometimes called Snowy Florimel, who represents beauty without virtue. And between books 3 and 4 something has happened off camera, as it were, because at the end of book 3 Snowy Florimel was riding in the company of Braggadocio, but since then she's been stolen by a knight called Sefera. And in this book, she's stolen again by Blandamore. So she just keeps getting passed from character to character. And each of her successive boyfriends is really proud of the prize that they've won, but Spenser implies that they overestimate her value. Paridel is very jealous of Blandamore because he thinks that he should have won false Florimel. So he attacks Blandamore. And they have a fight which is broken up by the Squire of Dames. So the Squire of Dames is a goodie. We met him in the previous book, and the Squire of Dames announces that a tournament is going to be hosted by Sir Saturain, followed by a beauty contest, and this episode happens a few cantos later. Before he narrates the tournament, Spenser tells the story of three brothers called Priamond, Diamond, and Triamond. Triamond is alternatively called Telamond. And this is an odd but very interesting story, which is partially based on Chaucer's The Squire's Tale. And Spenser gives the backstory as this. The three brothers were born to a fairy mother, and when they were young, the mother went to visit the three Fates, and she asked for their lives to be extended. But the Fates replied that it doesn't work like that. You can't just extend somebody's life. So instead she asked that if one of the brothers should die, his soul should pass into one of the other brothers. And then if the second brother should die, the two souls should pass into the last remaining brother. And therefore in that way they can have a longer life. And the Fates agreed to that. And then in Canto 3, this is back in the modern world of the poem, as it were. And the three brothers are competing with a character called Campbell to win the hand of Canacee, his sister, in marriage. Campbell kills Priamond and Diamond, and their souls fly into Triamond's body. So then Triamond is hosting all three souls inside him. And then Campbell kills Triamond twice, and the two souls fly out again. So then he's only got one soul left. And just as Campbell is about to finish the job and kill him one last time, Triamond's sister, Cambina, arrives with a rod of peace. And she breaks up the fight and brings concord instead of discord. And the idea of, although there's lots of strange Platonic metaphysics, the idea seems to be that the three brothers represent brotherly love. As Jesus Christ said in the Bible, no one has greater love than this, to lay down his life for his friends. So when Triamond was saved by the two souls, this represents him being saved by brotherly love. And Cambina, more than any other character in the book, represents the power of concord. And Triamond then marries Canacee, and Campbell marries Cambina. So you've got this fourfold relationship where both sets of brother and sister marry the other set. So it forges these unbreakable bonds of concord. Spenser then narrates the story of the tournament, and the prize of the tournament is to win the love of snowy Florimel. And Britomart wins the tournament, but she scorns the prize. And then the runners-up fight over who deserves to have the love of snowy Florimel, since the winner doesn't want it. And then in Canto 5, there's a beauty contest to win a girdle or jeweled belt. So this girdle originally belonged to Florimel, a beautiful, virtuous woman who we met in previous books. And it looks like snowy Florimel is going to win, but then because the spectators think she's really beautiful. But then when she tries to wear the belt, it keeps falling off, because the belt is designed that it will only stay on someone who is virtuous. And snowy Florimel is really angry that she's been proven to be unchaste, so she wants to prove that she is not the only one. So she pins the belt to other ladies, and it falls off all of them, so proving that all the ladies are unchaste. And the Squire of Dames laughs at them and says, "Oh, doesn't this just tell you about the nature of women?" But then it does fit Amoret, because she is the only virtuous woman of them all, and the belt fits quite neatly on her. As Spenser tells us these events, which when that scornful Squire of Dames did view, he loudly gan to laugh, and thus to jest: "Alas, for pity, that so fair a crew, as light cannot be seen from east to west, cannot find one this girdle to invest. Fie on the man that did it first invent, to shame us all with this, ungirt, unblessed." So that's a proverb of Spenser's day. "Let never lady to his love assent." So his is the inventor of the belt. "Let never lady to his love assent, that hath this day so many, so unmanly shent." Thereat all knights gan laugh, and ladies lour, till that at last the gentle Amoret likewise assayed, or tried, to prove that girdle's power, and having it about her middle set, did find it fit, withouten breach or let, whereat the rest gan greatly to envy. So Amoret is the most virtuous of them all, but unfortunately, shortly afterwards in Canto 7, she's carried away by a wild man. And the wild man was a really common figure, not just in England, but also in Europe throughout the Middle Ages and early modern period. And she is saved by Belphoebe. so her chastity is saved. And this episode has resemblances of the story of the rape of Lucretia, the famous legendary story of how the Roman Republic was born, told by Ovid, Livy, and many others. Also retold by William Shakespeare in 1594. So similarly, it describes the most virtuous woman of them all, her chastity being the main target, because she is the most chaste, it being the target of lust. In Cantos 9 and 10, Spenser tells the story of a squire who is chastised by Belle Phoebe after kissing a sleeping woman called Amelia. And I won't go into too much detail about this part of the book. It's being slightly dull. But one interesting thing about it is that the squire seems to represent Sir Walter Raleigh. Most commentators agree that this is a historical reference because Sir Walter Raleigh fell into disfavour with Queen Elizabeth after secretly marrying one of her maids of honour. So that's what this episode seems to represent, and Belle Phoebe here is a representation of Queen Elizabeth. Canto 10 gives the backstory of Sir Scudamore. Sir Scudamore's name means the shield of love because he carries a shield bearing the image of Cupid. So Scudamore explains how he once won this shield and also won the love of Amoret at the same time. Spenser also describes the Temple of Venus, or the Temple of Love, in this book. And in this temple there are 7 damsels sitting in a ring, and each of the women represents the qualities which Spenser thinks are essential in a wife: womanhood or maturity, courtesy, cheerfulness, silence, obedience, modesty, and shamefastness. And then Cantos 11 and 12 complete the story of Marinel and Florimel, which began in the previous book. And it ends with Florimel being released on a warrant under Apollo's seal. So this represents the final concord brought to Marinel and Florimel's relationship. And Canto 11 also has a very interesting digression, talking about all of the rivers in England. It's quite a nice little passage, so I recommend that you have a look at that. So that's an introduction to the main points which I picked out of Book 4 of the Faerie Queene. Next time I'll be talking about Book 5, so I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future.